Hello. I'd first like to apologize for not getting the speech done. I haven't been in school recently because I've been sick with COVID, and I just recently got my voice back. I am absolutely willing to redo this speech in front of my class, once I go back to school tomorrow, but I just thought I'd rather turn it in and get a few points off Sunday than not turn it in at all on Sunday, after it's due. So here it is. The real test, rethinking student success. Good morning, everyone. Imagine you're a student who spent countless hours studying, staying up all night for a major test in the morning. You know the material, you're confident, but when test day arrives, your hands are sweaty, your heart is racing, and suddenly all of that knowledge suddenly vanishes. Sound familiar? Now imagine being told that this one test, this small moment, will define your intelligence, your future, and your worth. That is the reality for millions of students every year, most likely even you. Today, I want to talk to you about why standardized tests are not only ineffective, but harmful, and why they should not define our students. Standardized tests do not actually measure intelligence. Let's start with what standardized tests actually measure. These exams, like the SAT, ACT, and state assessments, are designed to evaluate a narrow set of skills, such as reading comprehension, mathematical reasoning, and sometimes even science and writing. But true intelligence is so much more than that. Take, for example, Howard Gardner, an American developmental psychologist who studied at Harvard University. Gardner proposed the theory of multiple intelligences. According to him, intelligence includes linguistic, logical, mathematical, musical, bodily kinesthetic, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and naturalistic skills. Can a multiple choice capture all of that? Absolutely not. Students are musicians, artists, problem solvers, caregivers, and innovators. A single exam cannot measure creativity, emotional intelligence, resilience, or leadership, yet those are exactly the qualities that drive success in the real world. The pressure that creates mental health issues. Now let's talk about stress. Test anxiety is real, and it's affecting us students deeply. According to the American Psychological Association, standardized testing is one of the leading causes of student stress. Over 60% of students reported feeling stressed about these exams, and over a quarter said that the pressure caused them to lose sleep, skip meals, or even feel physically sick. So the real question that stands is, why are we putting so much pressure on students, especially young children as young as 8 or 9, to perform perfectly on a single exam? On a personal note, I watch a 6-year-old girl every day that attends GSIC. I help her with her homework assignments and help her study for her upcoming tests. After getting in my car every day, I ask, "How's school?" Every day, she tells me about how her teacher gave her 3 tests in one day and how tired her brain felt. I understood that feeling immediately, but the major difference is, she's 6, I'm 18. One test shouldn't be the difference between confidence and self-doubt, between opportunity and failure. This stress doesn't just affect performance, it creates long-term consequences: anxiety, depression, and academic burnout. In trying to push students to succeed, standardized tests often end up doing the complete opposite. Equality for all? Let's talk about fairness, or the lack of it. Standardized tests are often presenting as an equal playing field. Everyone takes the same test, so it's fair, right? But that assumption completely ignores the extreme differences in students' backgrounds and resources. We know that students from wealthier families can afford test prep classes, private tutors, and multiple attempts. They often attend better funded schools with more experienced teachers. Meanwhile, students from low-income families, many of whom are just as smart and capable, may not have internet access at home, let alone a $100 an hour tutor. The result? Standardized tests end up reflecting opportunity more than ability. In fact, studies have consistently shown that scores on standardized tests strongly correlate with family income. That's not a measure of intelligence. That's a measure of privilege. And when we use these scores to make decisions about college admissions, scholarships, and gifted programs, we're not just measuring students, but we're also reinforcing systematic inequality. Teaching to the test. Another major problem? Standardized testing changes the way teachers teach. With high-stakes exams looming over students and schools, teachers are often pressured to teach to the test. That means less time for creativity, critical thinking, hands-on learning, and exploration. Instead, classrooms become test prep factories. Drills, practice exams, and rigid curriculum pacing guides. Art, music, physical education, and even science and social studies sometimes get pushed aside to make room for more test preparation. We lose the richness of learning. We lose the love of learning. Personally, I've always loved to learn. Learning new material is something that always excites me, rather than feeling like a chore. Around freshman year, a big time of change for everyone, that perspective changed for me. I began to care less about learning and more about getting my work turned in. This harmful mindset resulted in lower grades and a really bad mental space. Teachers did not care about me as a person, but rather my test answers being correct to prepare me for state testing. The teachers focused all the material on memorizing rather than deeply learning. Good test scores meant good teaching, right? After freshman year, I fell back in love with learning. I began reading for fun again and focusing on learning the material rather than memorizing the study guide for the test. This mindset changed everything for me. My grades began improving, and my mental health was so much better. They don't predict success. Now you might be wondering, if these tests are so flawed, why do we still use them? One common argument is that standardized tests help predict college or career success, but the evidence simply doesn't support this. In recent years, hundreds of colleges and universities, including top institutions like Harvard, MIT, and the University of California system, have gone test optional or test blind. Why? Because research shows that a high school GPA is a much better predictor of college performance than the SAT or ACT test. GPA reflects consistency, work ethic, time management, and the ability to succeed over time, not just in a 3-hour multiple choice test. GPA tells a story. Standardized tests show a glimpse, and often a misleading one. Some might argue that we need some form of assessment, and that's absolutely true. We need to understand how students are learning and where support is needed. But that doesn't mean we need high-stakes standardized tests. Here are a few better options. Portfolio assessments, where students show their learning through projects, writing, and presentations. This may include slideshows that are presented in front of the class. Performance-based assessments, where students are able to solve real-world problems. This might mean working in a group to create a bigger picture. Teacher evaluations, where educators use their professional judgment to assess growth over time. All of these tests show evaluators of who the student actually is, and not just what they can fill in with their pen. At the end of the day, the most important reason to reconsider standardized testing is this. Our students are human beings, not data points. I want you to think of the student who's brilliant with their hands, who can fix anything, build anything, but freezes up on a math test. Think of the student who writes poetry that can change lives, but reads slowly and might not finish the reading assessment in time. Think of the student who works after school to support their family and didn't get enough sleep the night before the test. Are we really going to tell those students that their future depends on this one test? As someone who performs great on classwork assignments but does far worse on tests, I can vouch for every student who relates. Tests should not be an end-all be-all to education. A big reason why I struggle with tests is the complete silence. I tend to overthink my answers and my mind wanders. Even though I know the answers, my mind is thinking of something else. This is not a true test of my intelligence, but a test of my patience. How long can I sit in a silent room? In closing, I want to bring us back to the core question. What is the true purpose of education? Is it to create good test takers? Or is it to nurture curious, capable, creative human beings who are ready to solve real-world problems and contribute meaningful ideas to their communities? If it's the second option, and I believe it is, then I think standardized tests are not serving us. In fact, they're holding us back. We've seen teachers stripped of their ability to innovate and inspire, forced to teach to a test that doesn't reflect what students know or can actually do. We've seen research show, time and time again, that standardized test scores are poor predictors of long-term success, especially compared to more holistic measures like GPA, projects, and consistent effort. We have to stop treating students like data points and start treating them like people. We need to build a system that sees the whole child, including their strengths, their passions, their struggles, and their growth. A system that evaluates learning in a way that is fair, inclusive, and meaningful. A system that values progress over performance, effort over perfection, and individuality over uniformity. Because when we listen to those stories, when we look beyond the test and into the minds of our students, we see something far more valuable than any test could ever show. We see potential, possibility, and a promise for our future generations. Thank you.